What if I told you that the most powerful thing you can do right now is nothing at all? No chasing, no convincing, no over-explaining, just silence. Because sometimes the most transformative move you can make in a relationship is to let him feel what life is like without you. Not as a punishment, but as a wake-up call. When someone starts to take your love for granted, it's easy to think giving more will fix it, but real value is felt in absence. You teach people how to treat you by what you allow. If he's not stepping up, maybe it's time to step back. That space, it reveals everything. Does he miss you? Does he fight for you? Or does he disappear into comfort now that you're not chasing anymore? While he sits in silence, you evolve. You grow, you shine, you show, not tell, that you're the prize. And when he finally feels the weight of your absence, he might just realize what he lost. But whether he comes back or not doesn't matter. Because the moment you stop chasing, you start choosing. And that is the moment you take your power back. You see, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't saying anything at all. It's stepping back. It's letting your absence do the talking. We get caught up in this loop where we think that if someone is drifting away, the solution is to try harder, to show them even more love, to keep proving ourselves. But the truth is, the more we overextend, the more we teach them that we'll always be there, no matter how little they give. But what if, instead of fighting to stay present in someone's life who doesn't seem to notice the gift of your presence, you just stopped? What if you allowed space to do what your words couldn't? Because here's the thing, when someone gets used to having you there all the time, they stop noticing what you bring. Your time, your emotional investment, your kindness, your laughter, all of it becomes background noise. When that happens, continuing to stay available doesn't make them appreciate you more, it just normalizes your presence. It turns something valuable into something expected. And expected things are rarely appreciated. But the moment you remove yourself, not in a dramatic storm out the door kind of way, but with quiet confidence, you create a void. And in that void, they feel something they've been blind to for a while, your value. That absence, that silence, it's not about being cold. It's not about playing games. It's about creating clarity. Clarity for them and clarity for you. Because people don't realize how much you add to their life until they feel the weight of your absence. Until they reach for their phone and you're not there. Until they look around and the comfort, the warmth, the attention, it's gone. It's in that quiet where the mind starts to speak the loudest. Where is she? Why hasn't she messaged me? What is she doing? That voice, that little pang of curiosity or regret, that's where awareness begins. That's where desire begins. Because desire doesn't live in constant presence. It lives in mystery. It lives in contrast. It needs distance to grow. You are not doing this to manipulate anyone. You're doing it because you're worth being missed. You're doing it because your love is not a free-for-all buffet. It's a fine dining experience. And not everyone deserves a table. If someone doesn't recognize that, your job isn't to convince them. Your job is to step back and let them feel the difference. Let them experience a day without your check-ins. Let them go a week without your emotional support. Let them live a little without the person who is constantly showing up for them. And then watch what happens. Because someone who truly values you, truly sees what you bring, won't sit comfortably in that silence. They'll feel the discomfort. They'll feel the loss. And someone who doesn't notice or doesn't care, that's your answer. That's your freedom. That's your sign to move on and stop watering a dead plant. You're not here to beg for attention. You're not here to convince someone of your worth. The right person sees it. The right person feels your absence like a cold room suddenly missing its warmth. And the only way they can truly feel that is if you let them. If you stop trying to fill every gap, ease every tension, fix every moment. Let them sit with it, because your absence is a message. It says, I won't be part of a one-sided connection. It says, if you can't show up for me, you don't get unlimited access to me. It says, I know my value and I don't need to explain it. You'll feel it when I'm gone. And when they do, when that realization finally kicks in, it will have a much deeper impact than anything you could have said with words. Because while people can argue with words, they can't argue with what they feel in your absence. It's undeniable. It's real. And that's when they finally get it. Let him feel what life is like without you. If someone takes you for granted, it's not always because they're a bad person. Sometimes they've just become comfortable. They've grown used to having your love, your time, your care, without ever really stopping to appreciate what that means. But here's the truth. When you stay in that dynamic, when you keep showing up, giving, forgiving, accommodating, without ever stepping back, you're silently teaching them that this is okay, that this is the standard. You're teaching them without even meaning to, that they don't have to give more, that they don't have to change, that they don't have to value you differently, because you're not going anywhere. That's not their fault. That's the lesson they're learning from your behavior. And I know how hard it is. I know the fear that comes with pulling away. We tell ourselves, if I stop texting, he'll forget me. If I don't make the effort, he'll lose interest. If I create space, someone else might take my place. But the moment we let that fear control our actions, we hand over our power. We become reactive, not intentional. And when we act out of fear, we abandon ourselves just to keep someone else. Let me ask you something. What do you think happens when you keep giving someone something they haven't earned? They don't cherish it. They don't feel grateful. Over time, they start to believe they deserve it, even when they're not putting in the effort. Your kindness turns into expectation. Your consistency becomes background noise. And your value, not your real value, but the perceived value, it drops. So when I say you teach people how to treat you, it means this. The way you respond to being overlooked, undervalued, or underappreciated. That tells someone whether they need to change or whether they can keep doing the same thing. Now, some of you might be thinking, but I don't want to play games. And you're right. This isn't about playing games. It's about having standards. It's about showing someone through your actions, not your words, that if they don't meet you at the level you deserve, you will walk away. Not as a punishment, not as a threat, but as a quiet act of self-respect. There's nothing more powerful than the moment you stop trying to prove your worth to someone. When you stop over-explaining, stop chasing, stop reminding them of how good you are, and instead you show them by pulling your energy back, by becoming unavailable to the version of them that's not showing up. That's not cold, that's not cruel, that's clear. And here's what happens next. When someone truly cares about you, when they truly value you, they feel that distance. They notice the absence of your warmth, your attention, your care. And if they don't feel it, or they don't do anything about it, then that's your answer. Because someone who's deeply invested doesn't just let you fade into the background. They don't risk losing you without a fight. But if they do realize what they've lost, if they do start to feel your absence and they begin to step up, then it's because you gave them the gift of perspective. You gave them the contrast between life with you and life without you. And that contrast, that's where clarity is born. You're not stepping back to be mysterious. You're stepping back because you refuse to stay in a situation where your worth isn't seen. You refuse to keep feeding something that only grows when you do all the work. You're not giving ultimatums. You're setting boundaries. You're choosing yourself over the temporary comfort of being half chosen. This is how you break the cycle of being taken for granted. not by demanding love, not by pleading for change, but by becoming unavailable to anything less than what you truly deserve. Let him feel what life is like without you. Let him sit in the silence. Let him ask the questions. Let him do the work. Because the man who sees your value won't risk losing you twice. And the one who doesn't, you've just made room for someone who will. Sometimes the only way someone truly realizes your worth is when you're no longer there. And I don't mean this in a bitter or vengeful way. It's not about ghosting or playing games. It's about recognizing that your presence has value, and that value isn't always seen until there's a space where you used to be. Think about it. When you're constantly available, emotionally, physically, mentally, it becomes easy for someone to take that presence for granted. It becomes the background noise of their life. You become the dependable one, the consistent one, the one who always picks up, always replies, always understands, always gives one more chance. And while those are beautiful qualities, in the wrong dynamic, they stop being appreciated and start being expected. But the truth is, absence creates perspective. Space creates clarity. When someone is used to having you in their life, your voice, your energy, your love, and then suddenly that isn't there, they feel it. Even if they don't say it right away, even if they try to act unaffected, they feel the shift because something they were once so sure of, something they quietly depended on, is no longer guaranteed. Now, this is where it gets hard, because this is the part where you have to let go. You have to resist the urge to check in, to send that one last message, to leave the door just slightly open, just in case. That urge doesn't come from strength, it comes from fear. Fear that if you truly walk away, you'll lose them forever. But here's the thing, if your absence is enough to make someone realize your worth, then it was never your constant presence that made the connection meaningful. It was you. And if they don't feel your absence, if they don't notice the space you once filled, then they were never truly present with you to begin with. Letting someone feel life without you isn't about making them suffer. It's not cold. In fact, it's one of the most honest things you can do, because it gives them a mirror, a chance to see clearly what they've been holding or not holding in their hands. It allows them to sit with the consequences of their inaction, their indifference, their inconsistency, not out of spite, but out of truth. And during that time, you don't just wait around. You don't press pause on your life. You continue living. You reconnect with yourself. You pour into your friendships, your passions, your peace. That's how you reclaim your power, by realizing that their realization of your worth is not your responsibility. It's their journey, not yours. What often happens in these moments is something remarkable. The silence, that scary, uncertain space, becomes the catalyst for clarity. Suddenly, they're left with the echo of your absence, the conversations you used to have, the comfort you used to give, the way you made them feel seen, supported, desired. And for the first time, they realize that wasn't a given. That wasn't ordinary. That was special. And they miss it. They miss you. But by then, the dynamic has changed. You're no longer the one holding the door open, hoping they'll walk through it. You've stepped into your own light, into your own life. And now they have to decide if they're willing to meet you there. Not with words, not with excuses, but with effort, with consistency, with presence. And if they don't, that's still a win, because now you know you're no longer stuck in the cycle of giving more in hopes that something will change. You've stopped negotiating your value. You've stopped begging to be seen. And that freedom, that clarity is worth everything. So let him feel what life is like without you. Not because you want to hurt him, but because you want the truth. And sometimes the only way to get that truth is to step away long enough for someone to feel your absence and finally ask themselves, why they let you go in the first place. Because when someone genuinely cares, silence isn't comforting, it's deafening. You may feel this urge, almost instinctive, to reach out, to check in, to say something, anything, just to bridge the silence. Maybe you're wondering if he's thinking about you, if he's even noticed you've pulled back. And in that moment of uncertainty, it's so tempting to send that one message, something light, something that says, I'm still here, without saying too much. But here's what you need to understand. When you constantly fill the silence, you never allow him to feel the absence. Let the silence breathe. Let the distance speak louder than your words ever could. Because if you're always the one trying to reestablish the connection, he never has to do the emotional work. He never has to ask himself, where did she go? Or why hasn't she reached out? He doesn't sit in that uncomfortable tension where he has to confront the possibility of losing you. And that tension, that's what catalyzes realization. That's what makes someone reflect on what they had and what they might never have again. When you're the one who always reaches out, you unintentionally become the emotional caretaker of the relationship. You carry the burden of connection, but true value is revealed in absence. It's easy to be overlooked when you're constantly available, when your presence is a given. So when you step back, don't rush to fill the silence just because it feels unfamiliar or scary. Let it be unfamiliar. Let it be uncomfortable for both of you. See if he's truly interested. He will notice the shift. He will feel the absence of your energy, the way you listened, the way you supported him, the way you made life a little brighter, a little easier. That's not something that goes unnoticed when it disappears. And if he doesn't notice, if your silence echoes and he doesn't lean in, then what you've just done is uncover the truth you needed, because you deserve to be with someone who doesn't need constant reminders of your value, someone who feels your absence and says, I don't want to live without that. We often fear silence because we assume it's a sign of disinterest. But silence is neutral until it's interpreted. And how he interprets it tells you everything. If he sees your silence as a cue to step up, to reach out, to re-engage, that's someone who's paying attention. If he sees it as an opportunity to drift further away, then no amount of noise on your part would have changed that trajectory anyway. Let him wonder. Let him feel what it's like when your good morning texts stop showing up, when your name doesn't pop up during his lunch break, when he goes to send you something funny and remembers he hasn't heard from you. Let that moment sit with him, because in that space, he's no longer reacting to your energy, he's reflecting on your absence. That's where the real clarity happens. And I get it. You're thinking, but what if he forgets me? Or what if he just moves on? Let me flip that question around. If someone can forget you just because you stopped texting for a few days, is that really someone you want to give your heart to? If your connection is so fragile that silence breaks it, then it was never solid to begin with. You're not stepping back to manipulate. This isn't about playing hard to get. It's about giving space for him to decide what he's willing to do. And more importantly, for you to see if he even makes a move. Because silence is not the enemy. It's the stage. It's the moment where you stop doing the heavy lifting and you let the other person show you their effort or their absence of. That's why you don't rush to fill the silence. You don't reach out just to soothe your discomfort. Because every time you do, you're robbing him of the chance to miss you, to realize how deeply your presence affected him, to experience the contrast between life with you and life without you. And if he comes back, you'll know it's not because you pulled him like a magnet, but because he chose to move toward you. That's the kind of connection you want. That's the kind of love that lasts. So don't fill the silence. Let him feel it. Let him feel you by not being there. Let him feel what life is like without you. You know what's powerful? Living your life in a way that proves your value without saying a word. We get so caught up in trying to convince someone we're worth loving. We try to explain, we try to show up more, do more, love harder, just to make them see us. But the truth is, your life is the proof. The way you carry yourself, the way you invest in your own joy, your own peace, that says everything. When someone steps out of your life or takes a step back, it's natural to want to reach out and show them what they're missing. But the real power move is not showing them. It's being it. You don't need to send a long message or a heartfelt voice note telling him what you brought to the relationship. You don't need to make him understand that you were his biggest supporter, his safe space, the person who truly saw him. You don't need to argue about how much you did or how deeply you cared. You let your life show it. Because the moment you start living fully for you, that's when everything shifts. It's when he sees you out with friends, laughing, not because you're pretending to be okay, but because you are, okay? It's when he hears from mutual connections that you've been focusing on your goals, getting into shape, growing your business, traveling, learning, building the life you were always meant to have. That's when it hits him, the real impact of your absence. And the best part? You're not doing any of it for him. You're doing it because that's who you are. When you're connected to your power, you're doing it because you deserve a beautiful life. And when someone who took you for granted sees you thriving, it confronts them with a simple truth. Life doesn't stop without them. In fact, life gets better, not because of revenge, not out of spite, but because you return to yourself. It's not about making him jealous or trying to make him regret. It's not a performance, it's real. It's intentional. You chose yourself. And in doing that, you remind him of everything he no longer has access to. Your laughter, your encouragement, your presence, your belief in him. That doesn't come around every day, but he doesn't realize that until he sees you giving it somewhere else. Or better yet, giving it to yourself. This is what I mean when I say your life is the proof of your value. You can tell someone all day long that you're amazing, that you're worth commitment, that you're not like the rest. But none of that lands unless you're living it. If he sees that your happiness isn't dependent on his attention, if he sees that your energy isn't constantly orbiting around him, that's when the realization kicks in. He's not just missing a presence, a light, a woman who elevated everything she touched, and suddenly he has to sit with the fact that he didn't appreciate that light when he had it. He let comfort numb his awareness. He let your consistency become background noise. And now he's watching the show from the outside, no longer backstage, no longer part of the script. Let him sit in that distance. Don't try to rescue him from it. Don't go posting things just to spark a reaction. Be real. Focus on you. Show up in your own life, in your own goals, for your own heart. When you love yourself deeply, it radiates. People feel it. And the ones who had a front row seat and lost it, they feel it most. You don't need closure when you've got clarity. And clarity comes when you see that your worth was never up for negotiation. It was just waiting for you to see it first. The rest, the calls, the messages, the I miss you, texts, those things may come, but by then you'll already know that your value was never tied to whether or not someone stayed. It was tied to how you chose to live, even when they walked away. Let him feel what life is like without you, because that feeling, that silence, that space where your energy used to be, that will speak louder than anything you could ever say. You're the prize. Act like it. And I don't say that in a superficial, ego-boosting way. I say it as a reminder of your intrinsic value, because somewhere along the line, we start convincing ourselves that if we just try harder, give more, be more available, bend a little further, somehow that will make someone love us the way we deserve. But here's the truth. Real love doesn't come from you shrinking yourself to fit into someone else's life. It comes from standing tall in your own and letting the right person rise to meet you. There comes a point where you have to recognize that constantly showing up for someone who doesn't meet you halfway is not loyalty, it's self-abandon. You might think, if I just wait a little longer, if I show him how amazing I am, maybe then he'll see. But the reality is, you're already amazing. And if he's not seeing that, if he's inconsistent, distracted, distant, then continuing to invest in that dynamic only teaches him that he'd have to do much to keep you around. Letting someone feel your absence isn't a power move, it's a boundary. It's saying, I don't chase what won't meet me. I don't convince someone to want me. I show up fully, and if that isn't met with the same energy, I step back. That's not cold, that's clarity. And here's the kicker. When you remove yourself from someone's life, especially someone who's been taking you for granted, they suddenly realize that the access they once had wasn't guaranteed, that your love wasn't unlimited, that your presence wasn't a given. That changes the dynamic. Suddenly, they're the ones wondering, where did she go? Why isn't she calling? Was she really that happy without me? That space, that quiet, that absence, that's what speaks loudest. But you don't do this to get a reaction. You do it because it's the most honest expression of self-respect. When someone shows you through their actions that they're not ready, not invested, not intentional, your response shouldn't be to try harder. It should be to value yourself enough to walk away. And while you're gone, don't just sit in silence waiting for them to wake up. Use that space to reconnect with yourself, to pour your energy back into your own life. Do things that light you up. Spend time with people who pour into you. Wake up each day not asking, will he text me? But instead asking, what can I do today that reminds me who the hell I am? That's the shift. That's the moment where everything begins to change. Because your energy starts coming from a place of self-worth, not scarcity. You stop auditioning for someone's affection and start attracting people who recognize your value the moment you walk into the room. When he feels what life is like without you, without your encouragement, your softness, your laughter, your presence, that absence becomes his mirror. He sees not just what he had, but what he didn't appreciate. And whether he comes back or not is irrelevant because you've already made the most important choice. You've decided not to settle for anything less than what you deserve. This is what it means to act like the prize. You don't do it with arrogance or attitude. You do it with quiet confidence, with a sense of peace. You don't chase love, you embody it. You don't scream for attention. You draw it with your energy. You're not playing hard to get. You're just not easy to forget. Let him feel what life is like without you. And let that be the moment you fully remember what life is like when you choose you.